Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, welcome back to the Run It Back podcast, episode number 27 coming at you this week. The exciting thing about this week, guys, is we've got some more fights to talk about. Thank sweet baby Jesus. I'm excited, but I'm more excited to introduce my better looking co-host, Sugar Snags. How are you, Sugar? I'm good, but the other co-host, DL, welcome to the podcast.
Hilarious, man. Hilarious. I'm great, Snags. Mate, it's been a crazy month for the podcast.
It's been pretty hectic.
So this is our fifth podcast of the last month, which has been pretty impressive for a podcast that's meant to come out every fortnight. So
yeah,
we've managed.
Mind doing apologies.
Well, we've managed to knock out 5, which is crazy. Anyway, last week we had Geordie Sullivan on. So we had the fight dietitian drop into the podcast, which was really cool. We recorded that back at the start of May. The reaction to that podcast was great. A little bit more educational than some of our other podcasts, which is good. Wouldn't say
dropping some knowledge bombs on us, wasn't he?
Yeah, absolutely. I wouldn't say the normal Run It Back podcast is a lot of knowledge kicked around,
floating around everywhere.
So, well, it's a little, maybe just not from us two, but maybe from the other two boys, there's a little bit of knowledge kicking around.
Agreed.
But anyway, today's podcast, we've got 2 fights again to look at, both from the Apex in Vegas, which includes UFC 250 amongst that. As a fight night before it, then UFC 250 jumps straight into that. Also a sad affair, we've got the last run of ISO chats with Snags. It's sad.
I would say, it's not very sad because we're coming out of isolation, so I'm willing to give it up.
That's true. There has
been delicious chats with you boys.
Some restrictions have been lifted, which has been good. Also, just some regular segments as well. Hot take, leaderboard update. Some big changes in the leaderboard for some. Our predictions on the fights. We'll throw in some news as well. And then we've also got the stats from the stat man sprinkled in through those cards as well. But Snags, I've been holding on to something. Something special.
Don't even tempt me with some special treats.
Mate, I've been graced by the greatness. Stoney's back. Stoney is back.
He is back, boys.
He's 1.5 meters away from me, so it's fine. And he's probably got a little bit of hand sanitizer in his pocket. But Stoney, my boy, how are we?
Mate, it is great to be back. It's great to, let's be honest, this is really the Madison Square Garden of the podcast world. It's great to be sitting across the table, looking you in the eye for a change, feeling the heat radiating off these fluorescent on-air lights. Mate, it's fantastic to be back.
God, it got me excited.
Yeah, same. Looks like you got more than a pocket, like a small sanitizer in your pocket, though. You look lubed up, ready to go.
It's been a long time, Snags.
Well, look, unfortunately, I don't have him gazing into my eyeballs 1.5 meters apart, but he is right next to me on the Zoom call. So I'll introduce the stat man. How are we?
I'm doing really well. I'm doing good. I'm feeling strong from the previous couple of weeks of fights. I'm feeling good. As I'm watching people fight, I'm feeling better physically myself. And
what, because you're picking winners or because you just like people fighting?
Well, can't it be both, Snags? It's just a good feeling to watch fights again. And also it's really, really good to watch fights when you're earning a bit of extra money on top of them.
Is that some sugar value you're bringing early to the podcast?
I have a lot to thank Sugar Snags for. Number one, sugar value.
Well, you're not thinking my sugar value because
No, absolutely not. No. The concept of sugar value.
Yeah, the concept major, but that puts you in. I led you to the path of glory, as they say. Teach a man to fish, he'll eat forever. I don't know the other bit of the quote.
That could have been such a great moment on the podcast. You ruined
What's the quote? I'll quickly say it.
That's
and
it.
Then you can cut it out.
No, that's it. You nailed it.
No, we're not bowing out this one, mate. That's
ready. Lead a horse to water. No, that's not it either. Give a man a fish, he'll eat for a day. Teach a man to fish, he'll eat forever.
Very good.
So I would say that same in the betting scheme. Give a man a bet, he may win one. Teach a man sugar value, he'll win them all.
I love it.
There you go, boys. We got there in the end.
I'm sure you'll sneak that into an Instagram post during the week. No worries. Boys, looks like everyone's back. It's great. Feels normal. Let's roll into this with a little ISO chat with Snags.
This jazz music really gets me going, boys. Just putting it out there. Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, welcome. 96.7 Sugar Snags, bringing Hustle Chats to you. Another week, last week for us to be on the air, so please sit back, relax, enjoy the answers. Anyway, boys, welcome. Last episode of ISO Chats with Snags. So I hope you're all extremely excited. We've got some delicious questions for you. And I'm going to kick it off with the Statman, boys, if that's okay. I know, I can see you there. Just settle down a little bit, boys. I know you're a bit anxious for your questions, but you just need to hold on, okay? Sit tight, buckle yourself in. Kragos, first question, only question actually for you in this one, because you only get one. If you were to pick one UFC fighter to go into the gulag for you, who would it be and why?
Snags, I've seen you in the gulag, and what strikes me when you're faced with redemption is that you more often than not fail.
You're watching bloody DL, not me.
So I want to.
Statman never squads up with us.
I want a fighter who can get taken down a peg and then come back firing. And the only person that I want going into the gulag to fight and come back and fight with me is Stipe Miocic. The only reason why is, did you guys see his fight with DC? DC was piecing him up for 3 rounds, beating the crap out of him. He came out in the 4th, made the necessary adjustments, and took the win and took the title. And I reckon that's what he'd do. He'd hang his head a little bit heading into the gulag, but he knows that he's got what, like 30 seconds to make the necessary adjustments, and he'd make them, and he'd come back and join me in Warzone.
Look out, Steve. I thought you were going to go check Congo.
Oh, well, that would be a good one. And he'd thrown some nut shots in as well, so he's a good pick.
Bit of teabagging, boys. No one ever liked it. Anyway, thank you, Kragos. Unfortunately, I won't be talking to you next week on ISO Chat with Snags, but I move on to my friend, Breaking News with Stoney. Stoney, if you had a crystal ball and your name was actually Future News with Stoney, tell me, what's the biggest headline of 2021?
Oh, there's a lot that spring to mind. I don't know whether to go with Breaking News with Stoney getting a blue tick and being recognised as officially the #1 source of news and entertainment in the MMA world on Twitter. But look, I think 2021 is the year that we finally see that crossover, the cross-promotional double title fight. So I think that's going to be the big one that takes 2021 by storm, Sugar Snags.
Are we talking 1FC UFC?
I'm talking UFC Bellator.
Oh, look out. You boys reckon at the moment Bellator is still bigger than 1FC? You reckon 1FC's taken over?
I think 1FC's closed the distance considerably in the last 6 months.
I swear I saw an article during the week that 1FC was pulling in more money than UFC.
Oh, mate, yeah, over there they are, I'm pretty sure.
It's hard to tell because like the MMA market is so, especially for us in Australia, so like Western specific. But if you look at like Australian fighters being successful, you've got a couple in Bellator, but the large majority of the fighters who are making it on the international scene who aren't in the UFC are in 1FC.
Yeah, Greg, who's, just refresh my memory because I forget, who is the double champ over there again? What's his name?
Martin Wing.
Yes, that's it, Martin Wing.
Martin
Do you know that bloke actually lives right near me?
Does he?
I see him all the time on his Instagram running at Botanical Gardens. I'm probably going to run into him one time when I'm doing
accidentally.
20 Ks, yeah.
Be like, oh,
you know
sorry.
what I mean? Just smashing a couple out.
It's you, Martin Nguyen. I think that's.
Oh, Craig, that is disrespectful. Take it back.
That's why he won't respond to our
Cut
DMs
that out
come
of
on
the podcast, please.
podcast.
Last but not least, Young DL. Mate, this one is a bit of a 3-parter. I thought I'd give you a big one for the last question ever for ISO Chat with Snags, unless some global pandemic comes into us again in the next couple of years, which we hope not. So, DL, picture this, right? Are you with me?
Mm-hmm.
The boys are away. Boys trip.
Yep.
We're in Vegas.
Mm-hmm.
We've gone there with the purpose of attending the UFC.
All right, with you.
But there's been a bit of a mix-up, right?
Oh.
Shooter Snags bought the tickets for the UFC and he shot from the hip again and he's accidentally bought some fake ones.
Yep, this is playing out how it would.
Yeah.
Yep. So what he does to the boys is he decides, you know what, let's go have some bevies. And we have a couple too many. And we end up at the roulette table. Right, and we roll into a celebrity whose name shan't be named. Not for any reason, I just didn't think of a big enough one. Who looks you dead in the eye because you're wearing a Cardinals jersey and says, mate, I've got 4 tickets to the UFC tomorrow night, or I've got 4 tickets to the Cardinals game in Las Vegas. Main event of the UFC's Izzy.
Yep.
Cardinals are playing to get in the playoffs. All tickets are meet and greet.
For both sides,
Yep.
UFC and
Correct. So you can only pick one set of tickets. He says to you, if you pick the right number, you get one set of tickets. A, do you let Shooter pick the number for us?
do I let Shooter pick the numbers?
Yeah, me.
Hell no.
Okay. Well, I thought that's why B is what number are you picking?
Just the one number, or can I?
Right, you got to. He's got to hit one number on roulette. What's it coming up?
Yeah, but I can put my money on several numbers.
Well, he has said to you, you pick one number, so you can't because that's
Okay.
his
So-
direction.
I
All
do
of the numbers.
14.
14. Why 14?
It's my birthday.
Okay. Generic. I like it.
27
then
would have been the
C.
next number I would have taken.
C, 23.
27.
Oh, I said I would have went 23.
If I'm playing roulette, I go 14, 27, 4 and 7.
Oh, God, I'm very detailed. He's obviously played some
I
roulette
play the
tables
same
before.
4 numbers every time.
How fun. Okay, and then if you win, do you choose UFC or Cardinals tickets?
With not even a
Or
moment.
the boys?
For the boys, mate, I would not hesitate. It'd be Cardinals without a doubt.
Yes, get it, son. Kenny, the other 2 boys are filthy, man. You're on fire.
I'd start throwing. I'd start throwing down.
Cardinals for sure. Been to the UFC. I've also met Izzy before.
correct. I didn't hear
And
that.
I've been to the stadium Cardinals where they play, but it was off season. So I did a stadium tour with no players and no
Oh,
football.
well, look, it looks like we're checking that off the list, boys.
Snags, I like it. I want that to play out for real. That sounds dope. Sounds like
I don't know. I think
sounds
you
like
boys
a
would
good
be a bit
weekend.
stressed being over in Vegas. With
Sounds
buying fake
like
tickets.
divorce, to be honest.
Yeah, it does. Anyway, boys, ISO chat with Snags. Thanks for coming along. Hope you guys get out of isolation pretty nicely. Keep that hand sanitizer nice and close, and we'll see you next time on 7.5 Snags FM. Snags FM. Stop it. Craig was crying.
Snacks FM has fucked me, man. Honestly.
Sugar Valley Snags FM. When's it going to stop?
97.5 Snacks FM.
Absolutely
shit.
ridiculous. Boys, let's jump into hot take. Connor tweeted out his GOAT list this week, stating he was either second or first on that list.
I like the man's confidence. That's what I'm going to say. I reckon after it's all said and done, he will be on a GOAT list. I don't know if it'll be at 1 or 2 if you're just thinking purely about fights. But in terms of stardom, he's at the top of my stardom GOAT list. There you go. I'll put it that way.
Yeah, look, I think it all comes down to 2 men, Conor McGregor and Johnny Bones Jones. One has 22 wins, one has 26. Conor, interestingly, doesn't have a single loss at light heavyweight. John Jones has 1. John also has 4 DUIs, 1 sexual assault, and 7 total arrests, making him the undisputed baddest man on the planet inside and outside a steel cage.
Oh, that's an insult to Mike Tyson. Oh, inside the cage. That's all right then.
It's fucking ludicrous, honestly. Second greatest of all time? Nah, get out of here.
At least he was modest and said second and tied for first.
Modest.
Agreed. I liked it.
The UFC has not progressed talks with Jones-Francis super fight.
Do you know what? If I was tipped to fight Francis Ngannou, I would not be progressing those things either. So, well played, John Jones.
Interestingly, Dana came out and said that a lot of fighters like to talk the talk, but when it comes to the contract, it's not as free-flowing. But Johnny Jones doesn't strike me as the type of person who would be getting this vocal on social media, then to turn around and turn it down. So I'm a little bit miffed. I'm not sure what's happening behind the scenes, but if I'm reading this correctly, I don't think John Jones is the one that's playing coy behind the scenes.
Stoney, let me take you back the last 8 years of John Jones saying that he's moving to heavyweight. He keeps saying it. He won't do it. And he's walking out this fight now and then demanding a ludicrous amount of money, knowing that he won't get that money, and then being able to so I wanted to fight, but it's not my fault, it's the UFC's fault. Sorry guys. It's his way of avoiding the fight.
How unlike the stat man to have a negative take on John Jones.
Yeah, it was took me by surprise.
That is my super fight. John
Flawed.
Jones versus Francis Ngannou. I want that fight more than anything. I do not think that John Jones wants that fight.
Who asked for the fight at the start? Like, I didn't refresh my memory.
I think so. A fan asked John Jones if he would fight Ngannou, and he was like, "Sure, I'll fight Ngannou." And Francis was like, "I'd welcome you up to the heavyweight division," and then it kind of steamrolled from that. It was only about like a 2-week period of them building up that fight, but.
Boys, if we want some fights, just start getting on that Twitter and ask them some questions.
Prince Alistair Overeem was pictured embracing Wild Harris immediately after the ref stopped the fight.
I think a good showing from him. Harris, as I stated on the podcast previously, has gone through probably a very, very traumatic event, and that was his first fight back. So it was awesome to see the sportsmanship from Overeem from me.
Yeah, personally, I thought Alistair Overeem handled himself and the situation with the utmost class, not only on fight night, but in the entire week leading up he was in a pretty delicate situation himself, very tough position to be in. And then during the fight, I thought he could have absolutely teed off on a helpless Walt Harris there at the end, and let's be honest, nobody wanted to see that. So hats off to Alistair Overeem on a great showing all fight week and on the night.
Completely agree with Stoney. I think Overeem had probably the least desirable position that a UFC fighter's had for a while. No one really wanted to see him win that fight, and he handled it absolutely perfectly, and I think Walt Harris really appreciated it.
Bare Knuckle Fighting Championship will next week issue another offer to Mike Tyson in hope of bringing the 53-year-old boxing legend out of retirement. The former Pride champion Vanderlei Silva being touted his opponent.
Do you know what? I've never been so scared in my life than I have been since I've been watching Mike Tyson hit mitts. So while I wish to see him fight, I also don't wish to see him fight. Just let his legacy live on. But if he does fight, I would tee up that meme with those guys dancing with the coffin for whoever he's fighting. You boys know what I'm talking about? I thought that would be funny.
It's fun.
Look, I'd certainly pay to see it, and I think it would form a great number one contender match with the winner obviously taking on Artem Lobov for the undisputed bare knuckle championship.
I love Mike Tyson. I'd be sad that he's in a financial position if he needs to take this fight. Obviously, he's done so much in his career. I'd be lying if I said I wouldn't watch it. I mean, I don't like the idea of any 53-year-old coming out of retirement into a combat sport. Saying that, I think that Vanderlei Silva is a pretty decent foil for Mike Tyson. His boxing's wild and his chin is gone, so I think it'll be fun.
Thanks, boys. We might head into a bit of a leaderboard update. Statman, do you want to just give us a run through of the results that we picked in the last two cards?
Yeah, absolutely. So first on Fight Night Smith Teixeira, we had Ben Rothwell defeating Ovin St. Preux by split decision, and Glover Teixeira defeated Anthony Smith by TKO in the 5th round, when it really, really should have been finished several rounds before. Did we want to talk about that stoppage?
Yeah, that was interesting.
Several rounds before. How many rounds are in there these days?
What's that?
There is no several rounds before, Craig.
Several. Not 7. Several.
Several means more than one.
Yeah.
Snacks.
Oh, does it?
Yeah.
Oh, I thought it meant like 7.
No. Could have been.
Regain yourself, Statman.
That.
You're in your 30s, Sean.
So
Sean,
is his IQ.
we have a word for 7. It's 7.
I thought it was a plural, like a different word for it. Oh, shit.
We've already got this perfectly good word for 7. Why don't we give it another word that's very similar but slightly different?
Several. I always thought it was meant like you were implying a random 7 number.
You're so serious.
I actually am. I thought it was like, do you know when people say like, oh, a roundabout? That's what I thought it was.
Typically means 3 to 7, 3 to 8. Like it typically means in that range. Can we keep this in, or maybe
7.
pop this at the end of the podcast?
No, to leave it out, please. All that credibility is good.
I wouldn't. No way would I do that to you.
Oh, fuck, that's funny.
Do we want to talk about that stoppage in the 5th round?
Look, I actually thought he had several opportunities to stop that.
You can't do it, Snags. Don't do that.
I just wanted to see Dale miss himself.
I can sweat up a storm in here. I need to crack a window.
Go on, talk about it without me.
I've forgotten what fight we're talking about.
I don't even know.
Glover Teixeira murdering Anthony Smith.
Oh, that one. Yeah, that was bad. Look, I got to a point in that fight where I actually felt uneasy watching it.
Yeah, there's
it wasn't like usually hyped up for a fight. It's enjoyable to watch, but it wasn't. It got to a point where it just wasn't enjoyable. I think the most unenjoyable part was when he handed the ref his tooth, and he said it's just business.
Yeah,
that was creepy.
He was saying to his corner, "My teeth are falling out," and his corner were like, "Don't think about it. Drink some water. Just breathe." And honestly, like, so he's come out since the fight and said, "I have an agreement with my coaches never to throw in the towel." A fucking dumb agreement to enter into. That's how fighters die when they fight. But also, B, if a fighter is saying to you in a corner, even if you have a stupid agreement, if a fighter's saying to you, "Hey, my teeth are falling out," in a fight, you stop the fight then and there.
I think after it, the coach said he's got veneers. So when they said his teeth are falling out, and then later on, Anthony Smith's like, "No, they were my real teeth.
That were my real teeth falling out." It's fucking horrible.
That's unfortunate.
I was just worried. It was on big ESPN. It was a free fight card. It was the main event. How many new fans in isolation were watching that card and saw that and just had everything that they thought they knew about MMA and cage fighting confirmed for them, essentially. It wasn't a good look, I didn't think. Moving on to UFC on ESPN, Overeem versus Harris. We had Claudia Gadelha defeat Angela Hill by controversial split decision, and Alistair Overeem defeat Walt Harris by second round TKO in an awesome comeback as well.
Yeah, I think we've kind of discussed it at length, especially the Walt Harris and our boy Prince. But the Claudia fight was interesting because I had money on it, so I was hoping it was going to go that way. But at the end of it, Angela Hill looked clean. But Claudia, her strikes were clean. Yep. They did some damage. I don't think it always comes down to that.
Good fight, though.
Yeah, it was a great fight.
It was a good scrap. I suppose when you score it round by round, you could come to the idea that, like, if you scored particular things, if you weigh them heavier than other things, you could possibly score it for Gadelha. I did think that Hill took it, but the judges were kind of all over the place that night, but it was pretty interesting to watch.
Wild times. Plus, it didn't look real great in our scorecard for some. I'm talking about myself. So we'll just get a quick leaderboard update. With the leaderboard at the moment, like I said, I didn't have the best of nights or the best of 2 nights, as we'd put it, since these were back-to-back Jacksonville cards. I only ended up with the one winner out of the night, and it was Claudia. So that was a bit sad. Snags finished with 2.
Yeah, the 2 co-founders of this podcast have really just gone down.
Yeah, we've slid. We've slid. So we're on 29 apiece. So we're actually holding up. Oh, no. Oh, sorry. Craig, you're still holding Statman's still holding us up.
But how many did I get on this card?
The gap, getting there, mate. I'm getting there. So Craig, or the Statman, as we like to call him, got 3 on this one. So well done, Statman. Pushes you up to 28. So only 1 behind me and Snags.
So he's 4th and we're equal second. Is that what you're saying?
Well, mate, yeah, there's a gap between us. So, yeah.
Thank you.
That's fine. And Stoney, mate, continue on his merry way. He got the 4 winners on the night across the 2 cards, which was fun. He rolled the dice on Alistair, we thought. But in the end, it was pretty obvious that Overeem had the strength to take that home. So, mate, well done.
Yep. Look, I'll be honest, I'm running out of acceptance speeches. I don't know what to say in these situations. It just seems like I've used all the lines. I've got nothing. I just need a bit of decent competition. So if any one of you boys want to step up in the next one, feel free. I'm itching for a good fight.
You know what? A fan just tweeted me and said, would you fight Stoney? And I was like, do you know what? Yeah, I will. So I'm coming after you. But there's probably not enough money there for me to go into that fight. So I'll probably take a step back and Stay in my lane.
Stay in your lane. Boys, you think it's prediction times? Let's roll it out with our fight night live from the Apex in Vegas. Statman, what fights are we doing on this card?
So we're only taking the one from this card. We're going the main event. So in the welterweight division, we've got Tyron Woodley versus Gilbert Burns. When Gilbert Burns defeated Damian Maia, he became just the second person to ever finish the Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu legend and the first in over 10 years. In that time, Maia has faced dangerous finishers such as Tyron Woodley, Jorge Masvidal, Carlos Condit, Matt Brown, Chris Weidman, and Anderson Silva, and hadn't been stopped. Burns managed it in just over 2 minutes. So as far as my pick goes, I'm going to go with Tyron Woodley. He's been tepid in 3 of his last 4 fights, but he should have the power and the wrestling to use the wrestling in reverse to keep the fight standing. If the Woodley that fought Kamaru Usman shows up, I do think that Gilbert Burns will make him pay. I am taking Woodley by decision, though, hoping that the Usman fight has lit a fire under Woodley's ass.
Look, I can't imagine we're going to see that Tyron Woodley once again, Statman. I think he's too good to bow out and have 2 successive poor showings. So I'm fully expecting that, and I've said this for a while, irrespective of who his opponent was, I think the next Tyron Woodley fight that we see, we're going to see the Woodley of old. So I'm tipping Woodley in a fairly comprehensive win.
Woodley's been relatively quiet, which is, I kind of enjoy that. He was a bit more outspoken in his last loss. So he's really reined that in, which is good. So hopefully he's not working, or should he be working on his beats either way. He hasn't had a fight since March 2019, obviously, with that loss. So quoting directly from the man himself, "I'm in a violent mood," was the quote that I really loved from old T-Wood. So this fight is a fist fight. Burns likes his fists as well, so probably going to go the distance.
Yeah, doozy. Look, I saw Woodley on an Instagram Live, and he looked pretty fierce in terms of his mindset and what he was talking about. He said that he needed that loss to wake him up and set him on the right path. So I don't think he's been working on the beat steal. I think he's been mastering his craft significantly. My only qualms with it, Gilbert Burns, correct me if I'm wrong, Statman, on a 5-fight win streak at the moment.
Yeah, and fighting everyone who comes at him.
So, boys, I don't want to not take Woodley, but considering from memory the 3 of you have, I'm playing the leaderboard game today, boys, and I'm going to take my boy Gilbert Burns for the victory, and I think it's going to be by decision as well.
Perfect. Moving on to UFC 250 at the Apex in Vegas, we have Neil Magny versus Anthony Rocco Martin. Anthony Rocco Martin entered the UFC as the very bland Tony Martin, a name that is almost ungoogleable, and disappointed in fun but forgettable scraps at the start of his run. Martin was told by the UFC that despite his recent welterweight victory over Keita Nakamura, the UFC would not be renewing his contract once he had completed his final 2 fights. To counter his perceived boring persona, Martin began going by his much more memorable birth name. He grew out some ridiculous mutton chops and completed his 2 fights by starching Ryan LaFleur with a head kick and then submitting Australia's own Jake Matthews with an anaconda choke. Suffice to say, the UFC did agree to re-sign Martin to a contract. As far as my pick, I'm going to go with Neil Magny. I've been high on Neil Magny for about 8 years now. I do think that he has the tools. He's got the skill set, and he's got the John Jones physique to get things done. The largest reach in welterweight and middleweight at 80 inches. I think that he will use his reach and pressure to take this to Anthony Rocco Martin, who's a good fighter and been improving steadily. But I think it's a big step up, similar to when Martin stood up against Damian Maia and lost. I think that'll be the same here with Magny.
Yeah, look, I'm on Neil Magny for this one as well. I think I might have been the only one who was on him for UFC 248, and he edged out a nice decision win in that space. And look, I think he does it again. Remiss of me to say, I didn't know a lot about Anthony Rocco Martin until the Jake Matthews fight. That was the first time I can at least recall having seen him fight. I just think Magny's he's too well-rounded. He's someone who just seems to get the job done. when he can piece it all together. There have been some fights where he just doesn't show up, but I think with the experience and coming off a good win, I'm hoping those days are gone. So I'm picking another good showing by Neil Magny.
Yeah, definitely shorter time period than the 16 months he took to turn around on his win at 248. He was super impressive in that fight, as Stoney mentioned. So the quicker turnaround, a little bit more momentum for him. I'll take Statman's boy, Neil Magny.
Yeah, look, boys, I'm going to go the same thing. I think Magny, like Stoney said, actually surprised me last time. He fought getting that decision win, and I didn't know that he actually has defeated Gaslam before as well, which is a pretty big W on his record. So I'm going to take Magny for the win.
Perfect. Moving on to the next fight, we have Aljamain Sterling versus Corey Sandhagen in the bantamweight division. At UFC 228, Aljamain Sterling became just the second person to pull off a Suluev stretch submission victory in the UFC, and the first in over 5.5 years, tapping Cody Stamann with the painful move. Before the end of the night, however, there was a third as Zabit Magomedsharipov used the same very rare submission just hours later to pick up a victory over Brandon Davis. So as far as my pick, I'm going Aljamain Sterling. I think he's ready for the title shot. He's been ready for a while now. Realistically, one of 3 guys in the division that should be fighting for the title right now with Marlon Moraes and Peter Yan. And I do think that Corey Sandhagen is maybe a fighter for the future, but not a fighter for the right now, and Sterling should take it.
Yeah, I can remember watching Sterling back in, I'm going to say, mid-2018. He fought Brett Jones and edged out. It was a unanimous decision, but it was a really comprehensive showing, and unlucky not to get the finish on a number of occasions. He's gone from absolute strength to strength, as the stat man said. There's probably not anyone who's more ready for that title shot, but it's just so congested when you look at the likes of Peter Yan and whatnot up at the top of that division that, I feel for Aljamain. He just doesn't seem to be the one who's getting the nod, but I think he could do his stocks a big favour with another big win, and I'm tipping him. I think he gets the job done again.
Aljamain Sterling, the Funk Master, on that 4-fight win streak, looking for number 5. I remember his loss against Morales, and since then he's been on a bit of a tear. I think there was 1 submission in there and 3 fights that were unanimous. So he's been pretty dominant if you look at those numbers. So I might take the Funk Master. Thank you very much.
Ooh, look, I do like the name Funk Master and I do like Sterling, but boys, I'm going to go against you again and try to play the leaderboard here. Both men on, we could call them win streaks. Sterling's win streaks, I think, at 3. Corey, who I'm going to take, boys, I don't know if you know, he's on a 7-fight win streak. Done your research like Snags has. A couple of round 1 wins, couple of decisions. So I'm going to take Corey here for the victory, and Snags, along with Corey, be climbing up that leaderboard.
Dear God. Does Snags know that house money only works if you've actually earned it in advance?
Mate, sugar value works for wherever you put it, and I'll put it that way, okay?
I want that on a tattoo. Just
because you're in the studio against Stoney, I didn't hear any lippy from you when you're in isolation, mate. Don't bring it out now, okay?
He's confident
Otherwise
now.
I'll have to get me cane out and whip you back in the line.
He's confident now.
The next fight we have is Sugar Sean O'Malley versus Eddie Wineland. After starting his career at 3-4-1, Eddie Wineland put together a 7-fight win streak and won the inaugural WEC bantamweight title with a first-round KO of Antonio Benuelos. The title would eventually be merged with the UFC's bantamweight title, so Wineland could make the argument for being the first lineal UFC bantamweight champion. In this fight, I am taking Sean O'Malley by speed, creativity, and relentlessness. I think Wineland has been fighting it's about 17 years now, and realistically probably doesn't have much left in the tank. It's been a hard 17 years of fighting as well. I think he is the gatekeeper, the journeyman. O'Malley is the young gun prospect, and I do see O'Malley winning this one pretty handily.
Yeah, look, I'm with you again. Geez, how good did O'Malley look in that return at UFC 248 against that Jose Alberto? Thought the long layoff, I wasn't sure what we'd see from Sugar Sean, but he certainly did not let us down. For none other than I'm going to tip Sugar Sean O'Malley just to see if I can goat Sugar Sean Snags to once again tip against the house and take Eddie Wineland. Let's see how that plays out.
I don't think you'll see him tip it against Sean O'Malley, but I'm going to steal one of O'Malley's tweets and Daddy's home. I'm pumped for this one. I don't know a lot about Winelands, actually. I know he's been around for a while, like Statman said. When I did have a brief look, he's got a loss against Uriah Faber in UFC 128. Can't remember who headlined that one, but it was obviously a long time ago.
John Jones, Shogun Hua.
Statman, you're onto it.
Statman, come with the heat.
Unreal. So it's based on that. I don't know if that's actually got anything to do with fighting, but O'Malley for me.
Let me just quickly put my spectacles on here as I just retrace myself to Stoney's. I can't believe you said you're trying to bait me. I cannot and will not bet against my half-step brother, Sugar Sean O'Malley, okay? Shooter won't do it. Boys, I'm firmly on the podcast favourite. O'Malley for the W. I think he gets this done short and sweet in like his comeback fight. I know that Wineland, he's been around for a while, but I think he's had one win in the past 3 years, 2 losses as well. So Sugar Sean O'Malley for the boys, and then we look forward to him reaching top 10 soon so we can see him finally in a title fight and some gold around that belt.
On to our third straight bantamweight fight. We've got Rafael Assunção versus Cody Garbrandt. Early in his career, bantamweight Rafael Assunção would take on all comers in the lightweight and featherweight division. In 2005, he met 5-0 and future BMF title holder Jorge Masvidal in the main event of the inaugural Full Throttle MMA event. Assunção left that night the victor, taking the judge's decision, and has a win over current welterweight title challenger Jorge Masvidal, which is a pretty nice feather in the cap. My pick for this card, I'm going Rafael Assunção. I flip-flopped a lot on this. So the one thing that I looked at when I was crunching the numbers was that Assunção is very difficult to knock out, and I genuinely do see that as Garbrandt's only path to victory. The Garbrandt that fought Dominic Cruz seems like just a one-off fighter. We've never seen him before, and we've never seen him since that fight. And I don't see him pulling out that kind of performance on Assunção. Assunção has 100 more tools in his shed, in his toolbox, than Garbrandt does, and it could make it a long night for him. I reckon he uses his wrestling to beat him down. And Assunção is no slouch when it comes to power either. So if Cody Garbrandt goes a bit wild, I wouldn't even be so surprised to see Garbrandt unconscious, unfortunately, once more.
Credit to you, Statman. That's a brilliant breakdown you've just put forward. One thing I will say is I think we saw that same Cody Garbrandt again in the TJ, the first fight. The first round was fairly vintage. He obviously had that huge knockdown, and at the time I thought he had the fight won, but the bell obviously intercepted. Boys, similar to Alistair Overeem, I can't bring myself to tip against Cody, even though everything that the Statman says I agree 125% with. You know, I think if ever you would say this is the absolute last run that Cody can afford to drop, this is absolutely it. There's no coming back from this whatsoever. If he drops this, I can't see that he will ever hold any relevance in the title ranks again in the UFC, irrespective of whether he changes divisions. I think this is a really career-defining fight, and I'm going to back him. But yeah, it's going to be a close one, and this is a serious challenge he's got in front of himself.
Ballsy move.
Stoney's made me feel better about picking Cody because I was like really, really undecided. It was nearly a bet where I was just like, I can't lose. I can't go more than 4 or 5 away from Stoney on the leaderboard. So if he went the other way, I probably would have gone with him. Now I can go with my heart and say Cody because I really, really, really do want to see him win this fight. But I'm scared for him. He's been knocked out twice. I just think the pressure's going to be a lot. I don't know. I'm actually genuinely concerned about this result. So, but I think it's one of those ones when I watch, it's going to be super excited to see him if he gets up, and I'll definitely celebrate it if it falls that way. So,
just going to interject really quickly. I'm quite enjoying this sphere of influence I've got over the boys' tips. Obviously, I've rattled Sugar Snags to the point that he's just throwing away whatever remaining house money he's got with his, first couple of tips. And
boys, I think it's hard. Agree with you. Cody No Love is a fan favorite, one of mine as well. So it pains me to do it, but I'm going to pick Rafael and go with the Statman. 3 losses in a row for Cody. I know Rafael's got 2 in a row as well, but in terms of who's coming out victory here, I don't, unfortunately, see No Love getting it. And then... yeah, that's it. No love today from Snags. I feel upset saying that, but that's where it is.
Boys, it's time.
Breaking news with Stoney.
Boys, absolutely huge day in the news industry in MMA today. So I woke up at 8:30 Australian time to my phone absolutely ablaze with messages from my US correspondent saying, jump on Twitter right now, there's some shit going down. And what they were referring to was Jorge Masvidal reportedly turning down the 170-pound title fight with Kamaru Usman in preference for defending the BMF title in a rematch with Nate Diaz. Instantly, something seemed off. Never in the 16 years that I've followed this sport have I ever heard of a number one contender turning down a legitimate shot at the title when it was on offer. Now, you hear a lot of posturing, so like Colby Covington and Woodley, where he said, she said, he turned the fight down, they wouldn't sign the contract. You hear a lot of that during negotiations, but let's make one thing really clear. This wasn't a negotiation tactic here. Masvidal was offered the Usman fight, and for whatever reason, and we can speculate, and no doubt we will, he's turned that down, and he's fighting Nate Diaz for the BMF title. Just as I was trying to get my head around that move, news dropped, and credit where credit's due, and I don't give this man any respect because he rarely deserves any, but it was breaking news with Snags that broke this one in the group chat that Kamaru Usman would be defending the 170 belt against none other than the most iconic name in mixed martial arts, UFC, sports entertainment, whatever it is. Conor McGregor is fighting for the welterweight title. Boys, I'm still rocked by this.
Well, look, I was rocked that I was breaking news as well, but now I'm not. But I think it's pretty... I don't know if it's a good fight for Conor, but it'd be an interesting fight. And the mentality that he's got at the moment, I don't see it being a one-sided fight. I'd be paying for it, and I'll be looking forward to watching it if it comes through.
Stoney, I'm going to steal your segment for a second here. Who the fuck is asking for Jorge Masvidal versus Nate Diaz 2? Like, where was that on anyone's radar? Did anyone be like, that's the fight I want to see next?
I think Jorge's asking for it.
I know, but it's ridiculous. Like Stoney said, when have you had a fighter who has a title shot in front of them, like an intriguing title fight, and they're like, yeah, you know what? I actually want to go back and rematch the dude that I clearly outstruck and outfought for 3 rounds. Not only that, Conor McGregor 1-2 in combat sports in the last 3.5 years, with his one win coming over Donald Cerrone, who's now on a 4-fight loss streak, and he suddenly gets a welterweight title fight.
Statman, let me tickle your fancy here, okay?
Settle down, Statman.
It makes no sense, guys.
Ready? See this? This is my crystal ball for everyone listening. I've just got my hands in a circle. This is Dana White's crystal ball, right? And Masvidal as well. He goes, do you know what? Usman. Good name. Not a huge name yet. Like, he's a good name. He is champion. Great. He goes, do you know what? I'm going to let that slide. I'm going to fight Diaz, get some coin, BMF belt. Because he knows if he lets it slide, you know who's going in there. Mac Daddy, McGregor, right? Bang, bang. McGregor gets the W. Masvidal still BMF. We come to the pinnacle of Fight Island. Or just as ISO is coming out and fans are coming back in, Masvidal versus McGregor, BMF versus welterweight. Give me all your money. Call me Sugar Snags Value for all you like. Come on my radio show, Sugar Snags FM, and you've got yourself one of the biggest fights of all time, my friend.
Can I just interject there? Was that just that Conor McGregor will fight Jorge Masvidal for the welterweight and the BMF title?
Correct.
You're claiming that Mystic Sugar Snags called that?
Oh, Mystic. I like that one. Yeah. Mystic Snags on fire.
The real winner,
$50, boys, get on it.
The real winner of these negotiations is Ali Abdelaziz, like the manager for Kamaru Usman and Khabib Nurmagomedov. Because if you have it, if Usman beats McGregor, which stylistically probably should, he's a bigger, stronger version of Khabib. Usman's stats, you were absolutely right, Snags. He's not the biggest name in the welterweight division, despite the fact that he has the title. People would know Masvidal more than anything. So in Ali's eyes, sweet. If Usman beats Conor, Usman is instantly a name. If Conor beats Usman, all Ali has to do is push for a champion versus champion match, Conor McGregor versus Khabib. It's like it's a win-win situation for Ali. I just think I'm getting a little... and I'm a hypocrite. I'll tune into it because it's Conor McGregor. he turns the whole thing into a circus that you can't look away from. You have to watch it. I get excited.
Emotional. That's what you're getting.
I'm just disappointed that there's a clear-cut number one contender rematching a washed-up Nate Diaz that he beat handily across 3 rounds to allow Conor McGregor, who beat Donald Cowboy Cerrone. His last win was in 2015 against Eddie Alvarez.
Do you know what?
Boys,
we talked
boys,
to you previously
boys,
about your
boys.
negativity on the podcast.
Boys.
and I won't
This
have
isn't
any of it.
negativity. This is realism, man.
Oh, Stoney, control your segment.
Before I was rudely
Out of
interrupted by the
control.
stat man, what I was going to say is we did a prediction pod way back to begin the new year and said, what are we predicting for the next 12 months?
Oh,
And I don't
did.
believe it was
Go on.
Mystic Snags predicting that we'd see a Masvidal Conor fight for both the BMF and the welterweight belt. I mean, feel free to run that back and check that audio, DL. But that one just struck me funny that Mystic Snags is suddenly claiming that he's this godfather of predicting.
Look, I
He's
agree.
almost dead
You know what?
last and certainly will be dead last after the next UFC event on the leaderboard. And now he's just stealing things 4 months after the fact, claiming that he's come up with this bright idea.
Do you know what, Stoney? I firmly agree with you on that. I did forget that you predicted that. I also forget that your name's Breaking News with Stoney when I keep breaking the news for you. So let's just take that one off your radar and let me have my bloody time and place, okay?
Thanks for that news, Stoney. Always brings great debate. Boys, before we get into the main event, we might just have a quick look at our sugar value. Boys, couple of shout outs. We said we're going to do some shout outs if anyone tagged the podcast into their hashtag sugar value bets. We had Oz Rock God, who went a 5-leg multi. Unfortunately didn't get up, so no sugar value there. We had Texas Aussie on the punt, Claudia Walt, and he's gone for a race 5 at Queanbeyan.
Yeah, Maddie's the boss.
Maddie's the boss. Maddie's the boss didn't get up, so that fell through, and so did Walt. So unfortunately, that's not there. At On the Spears had a 9-leg multi, only to drop it on the main and the co-main.
That's the best name ever.
Yeah, at underscore On the Spears. So
I like that.
yeah, it's pretty cool.
That's some sugar value.
It dropped a 9-leg multi on that one, so no sugar value there. So none of the sugar value bets got up. Keep that running. We actually like that. So if you've got a bet on the next 2 cards that's showing a little bit of value, don't be scared. Hashtag that with the sugar value. Tag the podcast in there. Any platform. What do you
Do you
reckon?
know what? If someone
Are we matching
if
bets
someone
still yet
gets-
or not?
if someone gets a nice parlay, right?
Yep.
I'll put it out there in the podcast. Someone gets a nice parlay. I know we got some running back merch in the works down the
Ooh.
track.
True.
Someone gets I will say a 5-leg parlay.
Give him a shirt.
We'll give him the first ever running back shirt
The first run.
for free.
For free.
For free.
All right.
Did any of
Tag
you
us
guys
in-
get up with the sugar value bet?
No, I went
No,
to
that was-
disastrous.
that
Sugar value provided no value because I went 0 for 3. Craigos got his sugar value bet up.
Did
didn't
he?
I don't mind. Yeah, $97. Thank you very much.
Oh, it doesn't seem much value, doesn't it?
Well,
$97.
all right.
That's what I said.
Well, 97 is better than 0, mate. All right.
Yeah, touche.
Fuck
Anyway, you
yeah.
boys got any sugar value bets for the body this week?
I've gone one a little bit risky. I've had a look at the Mackenzie Dern Hannah Cypher fight. It's very lopsided, and I've just gone on the nose. So Hannah Cypher's paying $5.75 at the moment. Sorry, $5.25 at the moment, just for the win. Mackenzie Dern wasn't that great in her last fight, so maybe I'll just roll tenner in that. See if I can pull 50.
Once again, go on the
Hashtag.
straight shoot.
Sugar value.
Stony.
Look, I've broadened the horizons. I've gone a 5-leg parlay.
I was going for the shirt.
Going for the shirt. I've seen the concept and I want me one of those. I said Woodley would have a comprehensive win. So to kick things off, we've got Woodley with a round 1 KO, adding 850 to the overall.
Nice.
Contrary to DL, I've gone Mackenzie Dern. Now, shout out to Sportsbet if you're tuning in. A few prop options wouldn't go astray because I think Mackenzie Dern gets this done via sub. Unfortunately, we can only pick for the win. So Mackenzie Dern for the win. Chase Hooper, another young fella who's got a crafty submission game. He's someone who will become a bit of a cult icon in the UFC. Obviously made himself famous by telling Jorge Masvidal that he was Ben Askren's son. He's got a bit of humour. He's got the curly locks. He's no joke on the ground, so I think he might get a sub win. Again, no props in this one, just straight on the nose. Chase Hooper.
Come on, sports bet.
Caitlin the Chook, she couldn't get it done against the good Shevchenko, but maybe she'll get it done against the lesser, as the stat man would say. And Cody Garbrandt for the win. So all up, $62.
Nice. So roll a tenner into that, $620. So that is hashtag sugar value right there.
I like that one.
I back Stoney in wanting some prop bets in that Mackenzie Dern fight. I want to be able to bet whether or not I think she's going to make weight. I think that's the question heading into this.
Jesus, you've been savage tonight.
Mate, she made weight pretty. Here's the thing: she missed weight like 3 or 4 times pre having a baby. The first fight after having a baby, she made weight. So I think I'd take her being able to make weight this turn, and I would like my odds with those odds. So come on, sports bet, let's go on it. I've got a 6-6 fighter. I've got Shevchenko over Chukagian, Ivanov over Sakai, Elliott over Royval, Holland over Rodriguez. I reckon Holland, he's backing up on 2 weeks after his previous fight in Florida. I reckon he's on a roll. I've taken Dern over Cyphers, and I've gone Woodley by decision over Burns. So that adds up to 27-12 for a 271.20 return.
Holy dooly.
Stat man.
Some sugar value right there.
Stamman, can you do me a favour?
Yeah, boy.
No COD tonight. Straight to bed. You need to chill.
I'm gonna meditate.
Or get some sleep.
I'm gonna get some yoga in me.
Meditate? What are you going to meditate about?
COD mostly.
The G
Trying to get
life.
in that final circle.
Yeah, mate.
Gulag.
Gas is closing in.
Okay. Well, boys, let me tickle your fancy, shall I say. Let me give you some sugar value. So, boys, I'm going trying to redeem myself this week. I've gone a 6-leg multi to obviously try to provide some value to the listeners out there. So, boys, I've split this amongst 2 of my favourite things in the world. A, MMA, and B, the NRL is back this weekend, boys. So I get to have a couple little bets on there. So what we've got Gilbert Burns getting up over Woodley, as I've stated in my predictions. I've put a little 2 in there just to boost him up a little bit. Nunez, just because I want her on there. She's only paying $1.13, but gives a little bit of extra value. And I couldn't go past putting Sugar Sean O'Malley in my multi as well. So he's paying $1.23. And then, boys, into the NRL, I've gone a couple of roughies. So I've gone New Zealand Warriors to get up over the Dragons. Just I think the solitude of the boys at the moment will get them the win. Newcastle Knights over the Penny Panthers, paying $2.10. And then the biggest rivalry in NRL history, I've gone my team, the South Sydney Rabbitohs, to get up over the Roosters. The reigning premiers, the Roosters too. So we're actually rough outsiders at 3.10. We just lost our 5.8 as well. So, boys, that rolls into 52.23. So putting 10 on that, $523 coming your way.
Hashtag sugar value.
Hashtag sugar value.
Nice. Good to see it around back. AFL's not back for a couple of weeks yet.
I look forward to putting the Tigers on me multi as well,
Oh,
boys.
yeah,
I'm sure.
around the Tigers. 11th of June. AFL's back. So anyway, boys, let is rolling into the main event.
We've got Amanda Nunes versus Felicia Spencer for the Women's Featherweight Championship. Amanda Nunes has headlined 4 pay-per-views. She's been somewhat unpredictable at the pay-per-view buy rate game, with her first 2 headlining events drawing 1 million plus and falling into the top 15 of pay-per-views in UFC history, while her most recent 2 headlining efforts have drawn 100,000 or less. Even with coronavirus playing havoc with sports worldwide, I struggle to see Nunes Spencer being a massive draw, which is sad because Nunes consistently shows herself as one of the most exciting women's MMA fighters on the roster. I do think that this fight is perhaps an open and shut case. There's no such thing as a sure thing in MMA. Things jump out all the time to surprise you. But I'm hard pressed to see this fight end any other way than with Amanda Nunes getting her arm raised. As far as picking the method of finish, I'm going to go KO round 1.
Savage.
Very.
Look, I think people are sleeping a little bit on Felicia Spencer. Not a lot. I agree with Statman. I've got Nunes in this one as well. But consider since 2008, Chris Cyborg, all of her fights bar 3 have ended in Cyborg and knocking out her opponent. Those 3 that haven't, obviously Amanda Nunes, Holly Holm, and Felicia Spencer. So she's certainly up in fairly elite company. I think she puts on a better show than what people think, but I'm inclined to agree that I can't see this finishing any other way than Amanda Nunes winning. That said, I don't think it's going to be a round 1 KO. It wouldn't surprise me, and I'm going to predict a decision in this one.
Yeah, the fights have got to be closer than everyone thinks. It's got to be. I was nearly going to do it as my sugar value because Spencer's $5.75 on Sportsbet.
It's been heavy, eh?
Nunes is short. I think she's like $1.13 or something like that. So, as Stoney said, Felicia Spencer against Cyborg, she took her all the way. You know, there was opportunities there for her to win that fight as well. So, mate, we know what Amanda Nunes does. The Lioness does what she does. Prowls that cage. She takes her opponent. She's got the strongest punch in that division. I'm going to say Amanda Nunes, but I think it's a lot tighter than it is. I don't think it's a first rounder. I definitely think it's going to go beyond that. So I'm going to say, don't think it's going to go. I'll say decision. I need that bonus point.
Going safe. I like it. Boys, I'll have you know, Craig Ross, can you tell me what Amanda Nunes' first loss was? Don't worry, I've already got
Julie
it.
Budd? I don't know.
Now, Anne Maria, 2008, got finished in 35 seconds with an armbar. That was her first ever fight too. How crazy is that?
Yeah, it's brutal.
Crazy to think that she's come from there, the first ever fight, 35 seconds, to the absolute beast that she is now. I think I'm on the same page as Dale. I've actually found it hard. My heart wants to see an upset. I love Nunes, but I would love to see Felicia Spencer upset. That Cyborg fight was, one for the ages to watch for her. And I remember going into it, I think we all, from memory, tipped Cyborg heavily. And I remember watching it and just being like, holy shit, like this could happen. But it would be extremely surprising if she got up over Nunes. But, I'm just hoping for a super close fight and a doozy fight at that. And I think the two girls will give it to us, and I'm tipping it's going to be a good main event. But Nunes, for me, I think she's going to go 4th round TKO.
Guys, you're all talking about Felicia Spencer lasting so long against Cyborg Santos. Do you know how many times Cyborg Santos has been knocked out? Ever? Kickboxing, 0. Except for 1, Amanda Nunes in the first round. I if anyone has the power to knock out Cyborg Santos, they can knock out anyone in the first round.
Look, I firmly agree. That's why I think I've gone Nunes. But I'm not going first round. I would like some sugar value and something to watch for 4 rounds, Greg.
Just to be clear, no one's actually saying Felicia is going to win the Stepman. We're
No.
just saying that she's probably more deserving than what people are giving her credit for.
Yeah, I don't think she should be paying $5.70, but
I'm really surprised about those pay-per-view numbers for Nunes. I don't understand why Nunes doesn't pull good numbers.
It's unfortunate too because her 2 major pay-per-views, she hit $1 million buys headlining with Ronda Rousey, and she hit over $1 million, but it was only because it was UFC 200 and Brock Lesnar was on the undercard. But her Cyborg fight was co-main with John Jones, I believe, headlining, and it hit 700,000. But that was probably more John Jones. But her last 2, 100,000 and 80,000, and 80,000 is going back to pre-Ultimate Fighter numbers, which is rough.
Boys, that wraps up episode 27 of the podcast. If you like what we're doing, like usual, please hit us up on all our socials. Please like, share, comment, or subscribe to the podcast. Also just uploaded a heap of new content to our YouTube channel. Me and Snags have done a few interviews lately, and the video is up on there as well. You can see the Fight Dietitian, Eternal MMA. Nadia Kassem's up there as well, UFC fighter. Hopefully we'll see her on Fight Island. But boys, I think that wraps us up. My name is Daniel.
my name is Shooter Mystic Sugar Snag.
My name is Craig.
My name is Stoney.
And we'll run it back with you all on the Run It Back podcast.
Several times, please. Run it back several times.
Stan, man, why is he so angry this podcast?
Animated, wasn't he?
Verbally angry.
Wasn't he? John Jones?
Passionate.
You're those Mexican
Passionate,
supplements.
mate. Passionate.
You're about to punch me through the screen.
I don't think I've laughed that hard in about like 4 or 5 weeks.
Most of them probably been my fuck up.
Stat man, just quickly on your pre-tough pay-per-views, I'm just having a quick look. An average of 45,000 buys back in the Zufa era.
In like the early stuff, yeah.
And until Kenny Shamrock and Tito Ortiz headlined UFC 40 and drummed up 150,000, which in today's day and age isn't a lot, but considering the average was 45,000, that's a
1.5 Nunes. Yeah.
yeah.
How much did Nunes get as her buy? Did you say 80?
Yeah, she had one that was 100,000 and one that was 80,000. I can't, and that was before the ESPN deal, which